Welcome to the First Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ann Arbor. To be part of a congregation is to be part of a group, a gathering. And your presence here right now extends the 155 years we have been gathering as a liberal religious community. Community is at the core of who we are. Whether it's the first time you have stumbled upon our YouTube service, or whether you have had that page bookmarked for months now, we are glad you are here. After worship, all are invited to stay for some social time, a time to reconnect or meet someone new, and to engage in some conversation and discussion. When we light our chalice, a symbol of this faith tradition, it's a reminder that we bring our best selves to this shared time of music, story, of singing, and reflection. If you have a chalice or a candle that you would like to light along with me, you can get that. And if you would, say the chalice lighting words as we light the chalice. We light this chalice for the light of truth. We light this chalice for the warmth of love. We light this chalice for the energy of action. We light this chalice for the harmony of peace. Two weeks ago, I was present for a short ritual on Zoom to welcome new members to the congregation. In the ritual, we offered words to the new members that describe who we are as a congregation. I'd like to read some of those words to you now. We are a congregation that seeks to be open and inclusive, respecting your inherent dignity, your ideas, and your vision, in times when it is easy and in times when it is difficult. We seek to be supportive, not only when you reach out in courage to us, but also when you need us to reach out to you. We ask in return that you recognize our humanity. We will not always live up to our ideals, and when we fall short, we invite you to stay in relationship with us and help us more fully bring alive the spirit of love. When we spoke that 2 weeks ago, I was struck once again by what a beautiful thing it is to be in a covenantal relationship with each other, to know that when we mess up, we can begin again in love. Will you join me now in the words of our covenant? The spirit of this church is love, and service is its law. This is our covenant with each other, to dwell together in peace, to search for truth in love, and to help one another. As our time of worship begins, I would like to introduce our newest members. Sissel Bridges, Rheagan Martin, Bill Cerveny, Norton, Sue Schweinhart, Larry Schweinhart, Rebecca and Jim Sundberg. A very warm welcome to you all. It matters that you are here.
It's been a long I see a brand new day dawning. I've been looking for the sunshine, 'cause I ain't seen it for so long. Everything's gonna work out fine. Everything's gonna be alright. It's gonna be okay. 'Cause I can see the light of a clear blue morning. I can see the light of a brand new day. I can see the light of a clear blue morning. Oh, and everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna work out fine. It's gonna be okay. It's been a long, long time since I've known the taste of freedom. And those clinging vines that had me bound, well, I don't need 'em. I don't need 'em. I've been like a captured eagle. You know, an eagle's born to fly. Now that I've won my freedom, like an eagle, I'm eager for the sky. And I can see the light of a clear blue morning. And I can see the light of a brand new day. I can see the light of a clear blue morning. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna work out fine. It's gonna be okay. I can see the light of a clear blue morning. I can see the light of a brand new day. I can see the light of a clear blue morning. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna work out fine. Everything's gonna be alright. Everything's gonna work out. Everything's gonna be alright. Like an eagle that can fly, it's gonna be okay. Everything's gonna work out fine. It's gonna be okay.
It's important to this community that our love look like justice in the world and compassion. And from time to time, we take a moment in our service to hear about one of the many organizations doing our work for love and justice in the world. To learn, to celebrate, to deepen our own wisdom and information, to see what comes next, and to learn our part. For this time of discernment and appreciation we call Social Justice Connections, I welcome Ginny Preuss, and Carolyn Madden on behalf of Restorative Justice.
Good morning. My name is Ginny Preuss, and I'm here to tell you about restorative justice at UUAA. We have a group of volunteers who've been working with the National Lifers Association, or NLA, at Women's Huron Valley Correctional Facility, the only women's prison in Michigan. NLA is an advocacy organization within the prison where the members work for policy change and work together to support individual and community healing. Prior to COVID, our volunteers would go into the prison each week to support their meetings, events, and activist work. When COVID hit, we were no longer allowed in, and we grew increasingly concerned about the women in the prison. We developed a plan to do what we could do to support the women from outside. A number of volunteers wrote to the women to let them know that people cared. We then collected donations and purchased care packages and phone credits for women without means. The response was amazing. Women appreciated knowing people were concerned about them, and the volunteers were grateful to be a part of such a project. Next, we sent in copies of puzzles, coloring pages, and more recently, a document of reflections and questions on resilience based on our UUAA Chalice Circle curriculum. The women shared their appreciation and have asked for more. We're working to provide more puzzles, coloring pages, and additional reflection topics based on feedback from the women. With over 10 years of Chalice Circle content, we're able to support their requests. We're also creating a video with strategies to grow resilience. Please watch the newsletter for opportunities to support this very important work.
Good morning. I'm Carolyn Madden, co-chair of Restorative Justice at UUAA. In addition to our prison work that Ginny Preuss just presented to you, our group supports the work of Friends of Restorative Justice to bring restorative practices into the mainstream of the criminal justice system in Washtenaw County. Our new prosecutor, Ellie Savitt, has already begun transformative work in a number of areas that affect our county jail and prison system. He has organized committees with community members to change the cash bail system, to reduce warrants and arrests in our county, and together with the Dispute Resolution Center and Friends of Restorative Justice, is working to establish a Restorative Justice Center in Washtenaw County. Restorative justice peacekeeping circles are already a part of our juvenile justice system and will be used further to keep our juveniles accountable but not criminalized. The Circuit Court judges of Washtenaw County have unanimously supported using restorative practices in the adult as well as the juvenile court system. These practices bring healing to victims, to the community, and to those who cause the harm. These practices need facilitators. They need community support. As Daniel Sered, the executive director of Common Justice, has said, we simply cannot critique violence and mass incarceration. We have to build practical, moral solutions that will displace them. Help us build a healing community for all. Contact Healing and Justice at UUAA.org to get involved and support the prison ministry at UUAA.
When someone tells us a story that comes from their heritage, their family's history, from their memories, there is something special happening. You see, stories are the ways that we humans welcome each other closer into our hearts as friends and family. Here, when we take the chance of a story from deep within our hearts and souls, when we take the chance to listen well and to give our time, there is a moment where something that's important to another becomes important to us. And from then on, we each keep part of the memory of this story together. And that memory is the richer from our love and care. Here comes such a moment, an opportunity to be gracious and graceful. Let our imaginations and listening hearts be open for something special. Here is the journey, heart into heart. The Ramayana, originally told by the ancient Hindu poet Valmiki, illustrations and artwork by Sanjay Patel. In the book Ramayana, the divine loophole, as remembered and retold by the Reverend Manish Mishra-Marzetti.
Welcome to the Indian subcontinent and the ancient kingdom of Ayodhya. Here, thousands of years ago, lived a prince by the name of Ram. Ram had a brother named Lakshman and a beautiful wife named Sita. Ram was known for his goodness, decency, gentleness, and kindness. There was also a lesser-known side of him that he didn't boast about or let many people know about. Ram was an extraordinary being in that he was fully a human being and also an incarnation of the Hindu deity Vishnu. Ram was in line to be the next king of Ayodhya. However, his stepmom had been granted 2 wishes by the king. The king had promised his wife that any 2 things she wants, he would make sure happened. Kaikeyi, Ram's stepmother, wanted that her biological son Bharat be the next king. And so she approached her husband, the king, and said that she knew what her 2 wishes were. The first was that Ram would be exiled from the kingdom for a period of 14 years. And the next was that her son, Bharat, would become king. The king was distraught, quite sad that these were the requests his wife was making, but he had given his solemn vow. He felt he had no choice but to do so. Ram, being such a good-hearted and open-hearted son, understood that his father was trying to honor the promise that he made his wife and willingly agreed to a period of banishment of 14 years. Ram's brother Lakshman insisted that he would accompany Ram and his wife Sita into the forest, and the 3 of them set off to honor the king's wish and build a life for themselves deep in the forest for a period of 14 years. Far to the south, on the island we now know today as Sri Lanka, lived a demon king, King Ravan. King Ravan received word that the demons that he was sending into the forests of India were being killed by a prince there. He was most unhappy. King Ravan was the most powerful of all the demons. He had been granted special favors by the gods themselves. They had promised him that King Ravan could not be killed by a human or by a god, and that he could not be killed during the day or during the night. King Ravan considered himself invulnerable, and as such, he wanted to get Ram out of the way. King Ravan set a trap. He sent a demon disguised as a beautiful deer into the forest near where Ram and Sita and Lakshman lived. Sita saw the deer and begged Ram to go catch it so that she could see it and spend some more time with it. Soon after Ram left the hut, Sita heard cries in the forest, which got her concerned that maybe Ram needs help. She sends Lakshman to go after his brother and provide any help that he might need. Yet this left Sita alone in her hut. Now alone, Ravan appeared in a flying chariot and kidnapped Sita, taking her back to the island of Sri Lanka. Upon discovering that Sita is missing, Ram and Lakshman set out into the forest to find her. There, they met some of the animals that lived in the forest. They met the king of the black bears, and they met several monkeys, including a very special monkey named Hanuman. Hanuman was both a monkey and the son of the Hindu god of the wind named Vayu. He was a very powerful monkey. The animals they meet offer not only to help Ram and Lakshman, but they offer that their families will also help. their entire families, all of the monkeys and all of the bears. And they looked high and low. They looked everywhere for Sita. Hanuman and the king of the bears arrive at the very, very southern tip of the Indian subcontinent. Hanuman wants to continue searching across the ocean for Sita, but they're not sure how to do it. Hanuman says, "I can do it," and he takes one giant leap, flies into the air, and flies all the way to Sri Lanka. There he discovers that Sita is being held prisoner. Hanuman returns to India and shares the information that Sita is being held prisoner by King Ravan. But what are they to do? Ram and Lakshman and the animals devise a plan. And the animals build a bridge of rocks and boulders and pebbles so strong and so long that it spans the sea. And the army of animals and people travel across it until they reach the gates of King Ravan's kingdom on the island of Sri Lanka. Ravan emerges onto the battlefield to meet Ram, Lakshman, and the assembled army, and Hanuman insists on personally carrying Ram into the battle, serving as his chariot. A fierce fight ensues. But how does one defeat King Ravan, the most powerful of all the demons, the one granted special favors by the gods themselves? King Ravan had not thought through the potential loopholes of the favors he had been granted. The army continues fighting until it is dusk, which is neither the daytime or the nighttime. King Ravan had also not thought through the possibility of a very special being like Prince Ram, who was both fully human and also fully divine. These loopholes allow Prince Ram to shoot his powerful arrows and defeat King Ravan. With Sita now rescued, Ram, Lakshman, Sita, Hanuman, and the king of the bears all return home in King Ravan's flying chariot. Prince Ram has now completed his time of exile in the forest, and Ram is installed as the rightful king of his kingdom. In honoring the return of a good and decent king, all the villagers celebrate joyously. They bring sweets and they bring flowers, and they light small candles known as diyas, which they leave in their windows and on the stoops of their houses to welcome Ram and Sita home and continue the celebrations well into the night. Hindus commemorate this as the start of a new spiritual year, known as the holiday of Diwali, a holiday that honors new beginnings and a recommittal of ourselves to all that we know to be good and right. May it be so. Diwali, the Hindu festival of lights, the Hindu New Year, celebrated by Hindus all across the globe, including here in the United States. It occurred yesterday, Saturday. This holiday draws very much on the story that you just heard from a text known as the Ramayana, an ancient Hindu scripture, ancient story that is revered not just in India, but throughout Asia, particularly Southeast Asia, as a story that captures important spiritual messages, important spiritual qualities. Think of the metaphor and symbolism of the larger arc of the story that you just heard. Prince Ram, who embodies goodness, decency, justice, has been banished and exiled from his own kingdom. And after a period of exile, Ram returns to lead what becomes known as a golden age, in the kingdom of Ayodhya. A new beginning, the return of goodness and justice, the recommittal of a people to that path of goodness and justice. A beautiful story that the Hindu annual year revolves around. At a practical level, at the cultural level, the celebration of Diwali in people's homes, the traditions mark that this is a time of New Year. Homes are routinely cleaned quite thoroughly, the way people in Western culture, we refer to spring cleaning. In Hindu homes, that spring cleaning occurs during the time of Diwali. We set things straight, we set things right in our homes. The symbolism of new beginnings captured in the gifting, similar to Christmas, but with a very specific focus, gift giving within family or among family members is specifically of new clothes, and it doesn't have to even be anything fancy. It could even be a t-shirt, pair of jeans, shoes that somebody may need, but the new clothes marking a new beginning, something new that is being embarked upon. Businesses close out their books at kind of a spiritual level. Accounts that have been open and need to be closed are closed. Fresh beginnings are possible in business relationships. In a context of friends and extended family members, personal relationships are reflected on very deeply, similar in some ways to the Jewish High Holy Days, when a similar kind of feeling and sentiment is engaged with. We reflect on relationships and connections where healing may be needed, where restoration may be needed, and where possible, Hindus strive to engage in that work of setting relationships right in the context of starting a new year as well. It's a celebration at the level of community, both at the family level and the larger societal level. Family, extended family, close friends visit one another, and as they do so, they never go to a loved one's house empty-handed. In our tradition, particularly this time of year, you bring trays of fruit, or mixed dried fruit, or nuts, or sweets. Desserts of various kinds are offered to the people we love and care about. At the level of broader society, the entire culture and society celebrates with as much light and as much noise as you can possibly imagine. You heard alluded to in the story of the Ramayana how the villagers of the kingdom of Ayodhya set out little tea lights, candles called diyas, in their windows and on the stoops of their homes. Hindus replicate that in this holiday. Little tea lights are placed in windows, in every room of the house, outside the house, as much as you can manage, in as many places as you can safely manage. Things are lit up. In addition to the candles, if we were actually in the Indian subcontinent or another location where there are significant Hindu populations, it wouldn't just be the candles that are out everywhere. You would have a night full of fireworks, loud, noisy fireworks that light up the sky, not organized as they are in our society around July 4th. Imagine a fireworks free-for-all where anybody who wants to have fireworks is having fireworks off of their roofs, in the streets, anywhere and everywhere you can imagine. Hours and hours and hours without end, usually all night long. It's quite a festive atmosphere. It's also quite loud and boisterous. One can feel quite tired by the time the celebrations are done, but it is a very emphatic, joyful, heart-filled celebration. It's an interesting year for me this year to be honoring the celebrations of Diwali at a time in which it feels, as I've shared in other reflections, that the profound needs of our society and our world are clarifying. And even as they are, that those needs are really deep. They're not going to go away. And they need the commitment and engagement of good-hearted folks like us Unitarian Universalists. At the same time, even as all of that is clear, there's possibility in our hearts. We know we are people of goodness, of love, of caring and compassion. We know that there are differences we have made and want to continue making in our society and in the world around us. We saw the spontaneous joy of this 2 Saturdays ago as dancing and music erupted in the cities and streets across our country at the mere prospect of having clarified who our president-elect and vice president-elect are. That level of full-hearted engagement, I want you to step into that. Step into the imagery of that, whether you did engage in that or not, whether you felt it or not. One can appreciate the sentiment of feeling the lightness, just like a little bit of burden had been lifted. Not losing sight, nobody's forgotten how deep and profound the needs of our society are. I think they've never been clearer. And yet, stepping into the possibility for a while of spontaneous, joyful exuberance. I've sat very deeply in reflection by myself and with others, with peers, around how we navigate the time that we're in. There have certainly been moments where my heart has felt so heavy at what the world needs from us right now, that it can literally feel like my shoulders are weighted down with the impossibility of what is needed. I can feel so heavy as to almost feel immobilized. Can anything I as one human being do, can it make any difference given the profundity of the challenges that lie ahead of us as a society, as a people, as a world? It's a global community. And as I had these conversations, there were some beautiful things that came to me, pearls of wisdom. One of whom is a spiritual thinker from the 19th century. Some of you know my fondness for 19th century religious history. And this is a 19th century religious leader by the name of Dwight Moody, who, interestingly, was raised in a Unitarian household. Never underestimate the impact of that, by the way. We Unitarian Universalists have learned that even when our kids have become adults, they have moved on, they're not necessarily congregationally engaged, they may even find other ways that they want to express their religious, spiritual, ethical orientation than Unitarian Universalism. And yet their experience of growing up in our tradition with our ethical, spiritual approach of openness, of inclusivity, it has a lifelong impact. It doesn't go away. There's been lots of beautiful research on this. So Dwight Moody grew up in a Unitarian household. He became a devout Christian in his adult life. He's also somebody who lived through the Civil War, every ounce of it. I can only imagine, what that experience must have been like. He identified personally as a conscientious objector to the violence that was occurring, but he was very present to it, reflecting on it very deeply as a spiritual leader and what that all meant for the society and the time he was in. Those needs, that level of rift, it's different today, but I can imagine the weightiness must have been similar. Dwight Moody wrote this: "Happiness is caused by things that happen around me, and circumstances, therefore, will mar happiness. But joy flows right on through trouble. Joy flows right on through difficult times. Joy flows in the night as well as in the day. Joy flows all through persecution and the opposition to it. It is an unceasing fountain bubbling up in the heart, a secret spring the world can't see and doesn't need to know anything about." Such a beautiful and wise quote from somebody who lived through both the tragedy and the profound struggle and needs of our Civil War era, reminding us that happiness is a feeling, it's a sentiment. And in being a sentiment, it's elusive. Sentiments come and go, feelings come and go. But he holds happiness in juxtaposition to a different concept, to the concept of joy. Joy as something intrinsic, that even in the midst of trouble, in the midst of persecution and opposition to it, one can find sources of intrinsic joy. I would add beauty, joy and beauty, intrinsic joy and beauty. I was in a congregational meeting this week, and the question was posed as a check-in question: what's giving you life right now? And my response was immediate and so heartfelt, because this is what's helping me get through the time that we're in. The ability to notice fully, deeply and well as we can, simple, ordinary, everyday things, and reminding ourselves that these simple, ordinary things are actually extraordinary. They are special. They are beautiful. They are small, little, everyday miracles. In that congregational meeting, in the check-in, what I shared was, in this fall season, I feel like I'm noticing everything so more deeply. The falling of leaves, like the actual, as the wind rustles them and they're falling off the tree, stopping to notice, wow, I'm alive as the seasons are changing. And what a beautiful tone of yellow and orange to the leaf, and noticing the beauty of gravity, just pulling it down to the earth, where it will return to becoming part of that earth again. The beauty of this past week of being able to fall asleep as a rainstorm was taking place. I love the sound of rain, even better if thunder's present. Ordinary, simple beauty. The beauty of sunlight. Sunlight as the seasons are changing and as we know grayer days are ahead of us, being able to appreciate unexpected sunlight and warmth. The beauty of relationships. Somebody this past week sent me a letter, a physical letter of appreciation, which I wasn't expecting at all, and leadership jobs are hard. Let me just tell you, anybody in a leadership position, those jobs are hard, especially right now, with all the various needs that our society, our community, our world has. It's hard. And receiving something unexpected like that it just really brightened my day. It added a little bit of love, light, brightness, spontaneously, So joy, intrinsic joy, is not the same as a feeling of happiness. Intrinsic joy is about the noticing of things that we can dismiss as par for the course, but noticing that they're actually everyday miracles. Beauty. I really like the word beauty, because these are intrinsic sources of beauty that we can find our way to being present to. I find that in these days I'm routinely asking myself the question, especially when I feel frenzied or stressed or anxious, where does beauty lie around me right now? Not far away, not in a different room, in a different parallel life that I could potentially wish I was living. Right now in this moment. Behind me, a beautiful painting, a beautiful piece of photography, beautiful sculpture work that hands created. Some skillful, talented hands created that. These are ordinary, quote unquote, things. And yet they don't need to be ordinary. For it's the joy that buoys us, that lifts us up. It creates capacity in us that would otherwise not be there. in this same recent time of deep reflection, I was in a dialogue, in a conversation with a member of the meditation community, someone I'm close to, and I was sharing that, how easy it is to slip in and out of feelings of despair. And this peer of mine, this community member, she's a remarkable individual living in Wisconsin, 80 years old. And she said, since March, I have 11 immediate family members, 11 members, and I'm 80 years old. I've had six people, 6 family members died because of COVID. If anyone should be feeling despair, if anyone could want to give up, it's me. And yet I'm not going to. Because there's loss, there are big needs in this world, but there's also beauty, there's also joy. And I'm going to feed as much of my life as I can to the possibilities that I can still give myself to. Any little bit that I can do to make the world a little bit of a better place, build more love, more compassion, more light, more possibility. I'm going to do that with whatever time I'm given. So profoundly moving. She spoke specifically to the concept of joy as not something that's handed to us, but as something that we have to notice and claim, for it's around us and it's intrinsic to the human experience. If we allow ourselves to see things around us that are beautiful and ordinary as also at the same time actually quite special. Diwali is a festival of light. And insofar as it is a festival of light, this year I'm relating to it as an opportunity, as a reminder that the light is there, it is ours to claim. And sometimes we have to find it, sometimes it finds us. But even when it finds us, we have to notice. We have to be in a space, in the openness and the heart space, to be able to notice that it's reaching out, that it's in front of us. Some of you know one of my favorite poets is Mark Nepo. Gosh, I love Mark Nepo. I found a poem of his that is dedicated to light, and him both finding the light and light finding him as he was in a swimming pool. I want to share with you the words of Mark Nepo. This piece of his is entitled Flow of Light. He writes, I was swimming in an indoor pool when the wind outside parted the clouds and the sun, light years away, burst through the weightless dark, past other planets, through the bell jar we call the atmosphere, through the mystery of gravity, through the wall of glass that encloses this pool, to spray its light softly through the water, leaving threads of gold dancing on the bottom, which patterned through my mask and on through my eye to warm the cold spot in my heart. It made me surface through the water to look at the sky the way primordial amphibians must have broken through the mud. Oh, to realize that light will move through anything transparent. To stay transparent so the gift can move among the living. This is our job. Beloveds, look for the light, for it's around us, all around us. Look for it. Let it find you. And as it finds you, let it not only fill you up and be a source of joy that increases your own capacity, share it. It is not something to covet and hold on to. Nothing actually is ours to hold on to forever. Let it fill you up and find ways to share it. Even if it feels small to you, share it. Be transparent. Let it flow through you as it needs to, as light naturally does, both illuminating you and flowing through you. And in that spirit, I offer to you the greeting that Hindus offer to one another in North India, which is where my family roots are. We say to one another on the occasion of Diwali, Diwali Mubarak. Happy Diwali. May the light be with you.
Our time together is coming to a close now, but we invite you to continue connecting by going to Social Hour at uuaa.org/social hour. It's a wonderful opportunity to connect more deeply with one another through guided small group conversations. If you're new to our community and you want to learn more about us, you can also let the Social Hour host know so that they can invite you to a special breakout room just for newcomers. As Reverend Manish reminded us today, this is a time for coming together and for creating joy. One of the many ways that we can do this is by sustaining this community with our generosity. We can no longer pass on the offering basket from hand to hand, but we can still pass on our gifts of time, energy, talents, money, and presence. To make a financial gift, you can visit uuaa.org/giving, or you can still mail in a check if that's easier for you. In fact, it's been wonderful to read the kind notes and updates that often come with the checks in the mail. They're yet another reminder of how our love for one another continues on, even from afar. May each of us feel that love, and may we find our own ways of spreading it in the days and weeks and months to come. May it be so, and blessed be.